Everyone forgot me, and look where it led. I thought my son, Ryan, and his wife, Emily, had tucked me away quietly, just the old mother-in-law with no other place to call home. But when the eviction notice landed in their mailbox, I wasn't shedding tears. A smile crept across my face. I was the one who'd poured my savings into their house, the one they ridiculed, the one they pushed aside. Now I stood on the opposite side of the road, watching my son and his wife lose it all. Eviction, Emily muttered, her voice trembling. From me? Oh yes, because the woman they dismissed wasn't just kin. I was the one who built their foundation. Hold up before I dive deeper. I'm curious. Where are you reading this from? Let me know in the comments and hit that subscribe button. They handed me a flimsy plastic spoon and plopped me in a wobbly folding chair, acting like I should be thrilled. That spoon broke the second I dug into the tough, overdone chicken. I stayed quiet, just picked up the snapped piece, placed it carefully on the paper plate, and grabbed a napkin. Nobody paid attention. Not Ryan, not Emily. Not even their little girl who'd smudged strawberry icing on my sweater half an hour before. They were too caught up giggling near the cocktail cart, clinking fancy glasses, oblivious to the quiet settling around my rickety seat. I glanced at the banner dangling above the dining table. Happy birthday, Mom, it read, but Mom was scratched out, swapped for a sparkly sign shouting Emily's spring soiree. The cake was decked out with roses. Emily's favorite, not mine. I can't stand that sugary fondant. Margaret, Emily called out, her voice syrupy and loud enough for the 15 guests to catch. Need a hand slicing your food? A wave of chuckles rolled through the crowd. Someone tried to mask it with a cough. Another whispered, "She's still got her wits, doesn't she?" I gave a tight smile, resting my hands in my lap. No, sweetheart, just waiting for a sturdier spoon. Ryan acted like he didn't hear a thing, pouring drinks like he was auditioning for a stranger's life. The grass was lush, the sunlight cozy, and the fairy lights were already glowing for the evening's vibe. But to me, the air reeked of lemon polish and secondhand respect. My chair teetered every time I moved. It didn't blend with the others, they hadn't even tried to make it look right. My eyes drifted past the laughter, past the sparkling wine glasses, and landed on the house. Their house. A charming two-story colonial with black shutters and cream trim. The porch swing still groaned like it did back in '99 when we nearly lost it all. Back then, Ryan had been let go from his job. Emily was expecting and freaking out. They called me sobbing. I wrote a check for $75,000 that same week. Not a loan, I told them, a lifeline. My retirement could wait. Family was everything. We'd signed a simple agreement, nothing fancy, just a notarized note tied to the deed, recognizing my contribution and promising me care for life. I kept a copy stashed like a keepsake of trust. That trust now sat on a paper plate next to a blob of cheap potato salad. Margaret, darling. Emily's voice dripped with fake sweetness again. Could you be a dear and grab the dessert plates? I blinked. My birthday cake, and they wanted me to serve it. The ridiculousness almost made me chuckle. I rose slowly, letting my knees pop loud enough to hush a few nearby chats. My legs shook, not from frailty but from holding back. In the kitchen, I spotted the dessert plates on the counter. Cheap, flimsy ones that buckled under anything heavier than a brownie. I froze, staring at them. In the corner, an old drawer jutted out, one of the few things they hadn't spruced up. The brass handle was still dull, still loose. I reached for it. Beneath outdated flyers and pizza menus, my fingers found the folded envelope I'd hidden years back. The deed note. Faded but whole. My signature. Ryan's. Notarized and official. I traced my thumb over the paper, feeling the weight of every overlooked kindness, every snide comment, every time they'd handed me scraps from a life I'd helped build. From the backyard, Emily's laugh rang out again. Bright and smug, like everything she touched was hers by fate. I slipped the envelope into my sweater pocket. For now, I kept my mouth shut. No drama, no showdown, just quiet and power. I stepped outside with the plates. Emily didn't say thanks. Ryan didn't glance my way. But I smiled to myself, knowing something Emily clearly forgot. My name might not be on the mailbox, but it's on the paper that counts. I pulled out my copy of that deed note. They strung up a birthday sign but never once asked how I was holding up. I sat on the edge of my bed, the deed note's edges grazing my palm like a secret I wasn't ready to spill. Outside my window, the party's hum was fading. Clinking bottles, slamming car doors, the careless laughter of folks who never questioned where their comfort came from. I stared at the photos on my dresser. Ryan in his college cap and gown, Emily cradling their firstborn, a family cookout from years back, all grins. But what stuck with me wasn't the smiles. It was the phone call. It was mid-November 10 years ago. Rain was pounding the roof when Ryan's voice broke over the line. "Mom, I screwed up. They fired me. And Emily's 7 months pregnant. And the bank's threatening to take the house." I didn't pause or pry. I just got in my car, drove through the downpour, and wrote a check for $75,000 from the inheritance my own mom left me. Ryan swore I'd always have a spot in their home. "A room just for you," he'd said. "You'll never have to stress. Ever." That room's barely bigger than a storage closet now. The floor groans every time I move. The wallpaper's peeling in one corner, and the heater hums like it's on its last legs during winter. My clothes hang on a metal rack because Emily took the closet for her holiday decorations. The walls in my little room were so thin I could hear every heated late-night spat between Ryan and Emily, every exasperated huff when my name popped up. Just last week, I caught Emily on the phone with her friend laughing. "She's pretty quiet most days," Emily said, her giggle sharp. "Gets a bit mixed up now and then, but she won't be here forever." I lay there staring at the ceiling, letting her words sink into me like grit. That afternoon, with the house empty after their fancy party, I reached for the old metal box I kept stashed under my bed, my personal safe. Inside were receipts, old letters, and papers nobody knew I'd held onto. As I sorted through them, something caught my eye. A crisp, cream-colored envelope that wasn't mine. It had the bank's logo stamped in the corner. My brow creased as I tore it open. It was a mortgage statement. Overdue. Balance: $512,300. Status: delinquent. A 3-month foreclosure warning tucked inside. The words blurred for a moment, shock clouding my eyes. I flipped through the attached pages, late charges, skipped payments, failed refinance attempts, all logged over the past 8 months. 8 months while Emily was splurging on designer outdoor furniture and throwing cocktail parties for her book club. My fingers gripped the paper tighter. I scanned the pages quickly, hunting for something, anything, until I found it, my name. Tucked away in the original mortgage transfer section, still listed as a private co-contributor with partial equity rights. They'd never taken me off. I let out a slow breath, the statement crinkling as it rested in my lap. Suddenly it all clicked. The icy glares, the offhand rudeness, Emily acting like I was a burden instead of a person. I stood, the rustle of the paper still ringing in my ears, and walked to the window. Across the street, the neighbor's house had a for sale sign that had been up for weeks. It had a porch swing too and morning light that spilled through its big kitchen window. I didn't smile. Not quite yet. I found a mortgage statement stuffed with late notices. They splurged on new curtains but forgot to pay the mortgage. Those curtains were heavy, luxurious velvet, pricier than my monthly Social Security check. Emily stood in the living room, hands on her hips, beaming like a showroom model at how the light barely sneaked through. "It gives the place a touch of class," she told her PDA buddy, swirling a glass of rose. "Ryan says they're an investment." I was tucked into the old paisley armchair by the hall, my assigned spot, eyes shut, breathing slow and steady. The room smelled like jasmine air freshener and hidden truths. "Oh, and get this," Emily whispered, her voice dropping like she was sharing a juicy secret. "The refinance paperwork? Almost done. If it goes through, we can fold the car loan into the mortgage." Her friend mumbled something encouraging. I couldn't make out the words, my heartbeat was pounding too loud. I let out a faint sigh, pretending to nap, and Emily didn't bat an eye. But behind my closed eyes, my mind was racing. Refinancing? When the house was already in default. That night, with the house quiet and the dishwasher droning in the kitchen, I opened my laptop, the one Emily figured I could barely operate. I cleared the browsing history and typed, "Private financial advisors near me." By sunrise, I had an appointment booked. I told Ryan I was heading to the doctor. He barely looked up from his phone, swiping through ads for beach vacations they couldn't afford, and nodded. The financial office was in a small strip mall a couple of towns away. The advisor, a no-nonsense woman named Laura with sharp eyes and a crisp blazer, didn't waste time. I need you to review these, I said, sliding the mortgage statement and deed note across her desk. My hand shook a bit, but my voice was steady. Laura skimmed the documents in silence. This isn't just a contribution, she said, looking up. You're listed as a co-financier on the original loan. Do you understand what that means? I shook my head once. Break it down for me. It means you still have legal ownership rights, she explained. Especially since there's no record of your name being removed from the title through a quitclaim or sale. Have you seen any documents like that? Nope, I said. Laura tapped on her tablet, her fingers flying. There's more. Public records show a second lien filed last year and 2 maxed-out credit lines tied to this address. One in Ryan's name, one in Emily's. Both are seriously delinquent. My mouth felt like sandpaper. Laura met my eyes. This house is hemorrhaging money, Ms. Thompson. If they default while you're still legally linked, creditors could come after you too. I leaned back in my chair, letting her words snap into place like jagged puzzle pieces. How soon could they try refinancing again? I asked. If they haven't already submitted paperwork, likely within a few weeks, Laura said. But the second you inform the lender you still hold rights, everything shifts. You can stop them. I nodded, my thoughts no longer racing but sharp and clear. I need a detailed list of my legal options, I told her. And I want all this in writing. Laura gave a quick smile. I'll have it ready by tonight. When I got home, Emily was in the living room, fussing over throw pillows on their new leather couch. Sleep okay? She asked, not even glancing my way. Like a baby, I said, brushing past her, calm as a still pond. I climbed the stairs slowly, each creak of the floorboard sounding like a quiet affirmation. In my room, I pulled out the deed note again and sat under the old lamp with its worn shade. My finger traced the line where my name stood, bold and undeniable. They'd burned through cash, they didn't have to impress people who didn't matter. But they'd overlooked one critical detail. I still held the power to unravel their facade. My name still carried legal weight on the original loan. They called me a guest in their home, but guests don't cover the property taxes. I sat at the kitchen counter, frozen, my eyes locked on a glossy pamphlet left behind. Maybe carelessly, maybe spitefully, on the marble countertop. It was for a 5-day, adults-only Bahamas cruise, complete with balcony suites, bottomless cocktails, and private scuba dives. Emily's voice floated in from the living room, all sugary and bright. We snagged the deluxe suite, she bragged. Ryan scored a last-second upgrade with his reward points. Oh, and we charged it to my old visa. She never checks the statement. A burst of laughter followed. Not my visa. My fingers tightened around the pamphlet's edge. There was a time ages ago when vacations meant handwritten postcards, not stolen pins, when Ryan would call me from his college apartment just to chat, when he valued my advice. Now they didn't even ask me about a trip I was unknowingly bankrolling. I checked my purse. The card was still there, untouched, pristine. Emily had memorized the digits. I let out a slow, burning breath, disbelief simmering in my chest. Nobody had invited me along. Nobody had even mentioned it. The house fell silent now. Emily was out running errands and Ryan had taken the kids to indoors. I climbed the stairs to my room and gently closed the door. From a secret compartment in my nightstand drawer, I pulled out a small black box I'd ordered online a month ago. The tiny camera, no bigger than a key fob, could slip unnoticed onto a bookshelf. I didn't think twice. That evening, as Emily and Ryan sipped wine and debated what to pack for their getaway, I kept dinner chat light and breezy, smiling like nothing was wrong. Inside, I was paying attention. For nights later, the camera recorded exactly what I needed. Emily was sprawled on my bed with her friend, a wine glass in hand. She's no trouble, Emily said, slipping off her sandals. She still thinks Ryan's got her back forever. Honestly, I'll be glad when the inheritance mess is settled. The old lady acts like she owns this place. Her friend gave a sharp laugh. Does she even have a will? Emily smirked. Nothing that counts. We made sure she wouldn't know who to trust, even if she tried to make one. She still mails holiday cards to people who ditched her 15 years ago. I watched the footage on my laptop, each word slicing deeper than the last. My heart didn't break, it sharpened. The next day I called my lawyer, the same one who'd helped with my loan agreement years back. We hadn't talked in ages, but he knew me right away. I need answers, I said. If I can prove they're misusing my money and neglecting me, does my deed note still give me leverage? He didn't pause. Send me everything. If it holds up, yes, you've got a case. And then some. That night, I sat alone in the backyard, my phone glowing in the dark. An email popped into my inbox. Subject: Urgent property note update. From Daniel R. Holt. ESQ message: Margaret, I've reviewed your files. Yes, you have grounds to move forward. Act soon. A breeze rustled the fancy new curtains visible through the sliding door, their sleek folds now dripping with irony. Emily thought I was fading, forgettable, foolish, and outplayed. But I wasn't a guest here. I was the one who'd laid the foundation, and I just found the lever to bring it all crashing down. My lawyer's email confirmed. Yes, you've got grounds. They grilled ribeyes, but I got reheated broth in a cup. I started funneling assets into a trust they'd never suspect. The aroma of sizzling ribeyes filled the air, the sear of meat and garlic butter hissing like a standing ovation. The scent wafted upstairs, rich and tempting, curling into my room like a deliberate taunt. Nobody called me down to eat. I lingered anyway, catching the clatter of forks and the pulse of jazz from the dining room. Every so often, Emily's laugh cut through loud forced meant to exclude. Just past 8 p.m. there was a tap, not on my door but on the wall. 2 quick knocks, like a half-hearted afterthought. I opened my door to find a tray on the floor, holding a cup of microwaved broth, still wobbling from the reheat.
No spoon, no napkin.
I lifted it slowly, the warmth seeping into my hands, then shuffled back to my chair by the window. Down below, the dinner party was in full swing. Emily had draped twinkle lights across the shrubs. Ryan stood by the grill, a craft beer in hand, chuckling with neighbors. Someone raised a glass to new beginnings and bright futures. I sipped the broth, thin and tepid, the kind Emily had hoarded during the pandemic and never tossed. I drank every drop. I had plans to make. 5 days later, I sat in a notary's office downtown, my lawyer and a witness by my side. My hands moved with purpose, signing the final page of the trust papers. The trust's name was understated: the Thompson Legacy Trust. Everything, my remaining stake in the house, my untouched savings account, even my life insurance, now sat safely inside it. Ironclad, invisible to anyone who didn't know where to look. They'll never find this? I asked my lawyer. He gave a curt nod. Not unless you spill or they drag you to court. They won't see it coming. I smiled faintly. Emily skimmed fine print. Ryan only read what screamed in all caps. A few days later, Emily threw another shindig. A charcuterie and wine night for the local garden club. Naturally, I wasn't on the guest list. I watched from my window as folks rolled up in sundresses and pressed khakis, passing wine glasses like they were sacred. This time I didn't bother faking a nap. I slipped out the back door, settled onto the patio bench, and dialed my banker from the quiet of the garden. Lock down all my linked cards, I told her firmly. Cancel any automatic payments. If Emily or Ryan try to call, send them straight to me. The banker paused, her voice cautious. That's going to stir up some chaos. I smirked. That's exactly what I'm aiming for. I ended the call and stepped back inside just as Emily breezed into the kitchen to grab more Gouda. Our eyes locked. She flashed a stiff smile. Everything all right? She asked, her tone overly sweet. I nodded casually. Oh sure. Just soaking up the night air. Emily opened the fridge, hesitated, then glanced back. You know, if you ever want to chip in for these get-togethers, just say the word, she said with a laugh. I smiled softly. I think I've contributed plenty already, don't you? Emily's face faltered. I brushed past her, not waiting for a reply. The next morning, I logged into my investment account, something I hadn't touched in over a decade. I sold off my dormant mutual fund. It wasn't a fortune, but it was solid, more than enough. I watched the screen as the balance updated, a rush-like warmth flooding back into a numb arm. Then I made the call. Hi, I'd like to open escrow on 208 Maple Lane, the house across the street, full cash offer. I told the real estate agent. She sounded floored. Are you certain? That place has been on the market for ages. Positive, I said. Keep it hush-hush. No ads, no signs. I hung up and glanced out the window. Emily was across the street, fussing over her rose bushes with dramatic precision. She looked up. I gave a friendly wave and a smile. She waved back, oblivious, thinking she still had the upper hand. I opened escrow on the house they'd been eyeing across the street. They told everyone I was losing my memory. I remembered every single word. The front door wouldn't budge. I turned the knob again, slower, the cold metal unyielding under my hand. I knocked lightly, then harder, my knuckles sharp against the wood. From the backyard I heard laughter, the clink of glasses, chairs dragging across the patio, someone yelping about a bee. But no one came. I stepped back and scanned the area. The side gate was bolted from the inside, and the front door stayed locked. My gardening gloves were still damp from pruning the lilacs earlier, and a smudge of dirt now stained my sweater's hem. I knocked again, louder this time. Nothing. Through the window I saw Emily pouring mojitos into fancy glasses, surrounded by grinning guests. My spot at the table was gone, 9 people but only 8 chairs. They knew I was stuck outside. I stepped away from the door and sank onto the porch swing, my breathing even. A soft breeze grazed my face, carrying the scent of grilled burgers and the neighbor's lavender. I closed my eyes for a moment, not to relax but to catalog everything. This wasn't new. 3 weeks ago I'd gone to grab the mail and came back to a locked door. Emily claimed it was a habit from securing the house at night. A week later my room's thermostat was cranked down to 58 degrees. When I brought it up, Ryan chuckled. "Maybe you bumped it by mistake, Mom. You've been a bit spacey, haven't you?" I'd smiled then too, nodded and mumbled something non-committal. I let them weave their little story, lie by lie, but I recorded every moment in my notebook, a leather-bound journal hidden under my mattress, each entry time-stamped and precise. The locked door earned its own page. Eventually the back door creaked open. It was Emily, her face flushed and irritated. "Oh, Margaret, we didn't know you were out here," she said, her voice dripping with false concern. I blinked. "Guess I got a little lost." She ushered me in, her tone sugary. "These old locks can be so tricky, can't they?" I nodded. "Sure. I forget things sometimes." Later that night, as the party fizzled into small talk and phone scrolling, I sat in the corner half hidden, my knitting needles clicking softly like I was lost in thought. But my ears were sharp. Ryan stood by the fire pit, chatting with a neighbor who wore too much aftershave and too little subtlety. "She's slipping," Ryan said, his voice low but clear. "Keeps retelling stories from the 90s, can't keep track of the days." The neighbor laughed. "Time to look into one of those memory care places?" Ryan sipped his beer. "Emily's already on it. We just need to steer her that way." My fingers froze mid-stitch. I slipped my hand into my sweater pocket, tapped my phone, and hit record on the voice memo app. It captured everything. Ryan's casual tone, the crackle of the fire, the clink of bottles. It wasn't just the words that stung. It was how easily they flowed, like I was an outdated couch they couldn't quite toss. I stayed put until the fire died down and the guests trickled out. Back in my room, I replayed the recording twice. I didn't cry. I uploaded it to a secure cloud drive, labeled it evidence_001. The next morning, I smiled when Ryan asked how I'd slept. "Just great," I said. "Though I might have misplaced my Tuesday meds again." He gave a nervous laugh. "You've always been so organized." I nodded. "Hope I don't lose that habit." I recorded their conversation on my phone. They forgot I was the reason their roof doesn't leak. The banker stared at his monitor for a long moment before speaking, his eyes darting between the screen and me, unsure whether to be shocked, impressed, or wary. "I'll be honest, Miss Thompson," he said at last, leaning back in his chair. "We don't often see original investors walk in after, 12 years? 13, I corrected calmly. "I remember because the roof collapsed that summer. I'm the one who made sure they could rebuild." I pulled a folder from my bag and slid it across his desk. Inside were notarized copies of the loan agreement and the original check receipt. $70,000, my entire nest egg, gone for a promise. The banker, Greg, loosened his tie slightly. "You're saying the property's being mismanaged?" "I'm not saying it," I replied, my voice steady. "I'm proving it." He tapped a few keys, pulling up the account. I leaned forward just enough to glimpse the screen. The house was still tied to my name, not as the sole owner but as the primary silent contributor. My credit was still woven into the loan's framework. I hadn't realized how vulnerable that left me. Greg's brow furrowed. This is concerning. A refinance application came through just last week. Strange timing. He clicked again, then paused. And odd. Your signature's on these papers. It looked like my signature, but it was someone else's handiwork. My heart skipped a beat, but I kept my expression steady. Forgery? Greg tilted the monitor toward me. Not only that, he said. Your birth year's off. They marked you as a dependent retiree, and this new application inflates their income by almost 50%. I let the quiet linger before speaking. Now do you see why I'm sitting here? Greg gave a curt nod. We'll need to flag this application right away and launch a fraud investigation. You'll have to officially declare these documents false. I nodded, already reaching for a pen. I'll sign whatever it takes. As I wrote, the old fury didn't flare up. It didn't have to. What burned now was colder, clearer, more like a calculated plan. Emily must have thought she could outsmart digital records and legal trails, forgetting I was the one who'd laid the cornerstone of the house they called theirs. I was the bedrock under their feet, and that bedrock was starting to quake. Greg kept typing. You can also halt all financial activity tied to this property while we investigate. It won't stop them from seeking a refinance elsewhere, but it'll lock this path. I pictured the sleek SUV Emily had been test driving last month, the high-end furniture catalog in the trash, the leather purse still sporting its price tag under the strap. They were spending money they didn't have, banking on funds they thought were guaranteed. Freeze it, I said. Every account, every channel they might try through this bank. Greg paused. That could stir up some drama. I gave a smile that stayed cool and distant. Let it stir. I've been quiet for 13 years. That's plenty long. That night, Emily was pacing the hallway, whispering into her phone. What do you mean the application stalled? I double-checked everything. No, she can't access it anymore. We made sure. I glided past her slowly, silent, unnoticed. She didn't see me, but I heard every word. Later, in my room, I recorded another memo, my voice steady and exact. July 22nd, forged refinance attempt flagged. Bank notified, freeze activated. I saved the file, backed it up, and let out a long breath. They discarded me like a crumpled receipt, but now I was the one balancing the ledger. I told the bank to shut down all activity. They decked out the house for a holiday while I braced for a foreclosure. The front porch was a spectacle of excess. Oversized inflatable turkeys swayed in the breeze, framed by chalkboard signs proclaiming autumn joy and grateful hearts. Emily had even splurged on faux straw bales, arranged just so next to a new fall wreath. $1.49, the tag still peeking out from the bow. I noticed it as I stepped inside with my reusable grocery bag. Invisible as ever. The house reeked of pumpkin spice candles and overreaching dreams. Gold and crimson garlands draped every window. A cluster of tiny gourds adorned the dining table, right beside a sparkling new crystal vase that screamed expensive. My eyes swept the room like a camera lens. Fresh throw blankets on the sofa. A high-end cast iron pot on the stove, still in its box. A shiny coffee maker on the counter, flashing its setup screen. All of it gleaming with reckless hope. I didn't touch a thing. I just moved slowly, my phone in hand, snapping discreet photos. Close-ups of designer labels, luxury purchases, receipts scattered like confetti. Taking up photography? Emily's voice drifted from the hallway. I turned with a gentle smile. Just admiring your decorating skills. She spun in a circle, flaunting her latest buy. A navy leather handbag with silver accents. Ryan got it for me. Isn't it stunning? Limited edition. Snagged it with reward points. I raised an eyebrow. Must have been some deal. She missed the edge in my voice and pranced off, humming. Later that afternoon, I sat at the kitchen table while Ryan wrestled with the new coffee machine, jabbing at the buttons like he was proving a point. He slid a mug my way. Thanks, I said. He lingered, leaning on the counter, his tone too relaxed. So, we've hit a few financial snags. You know, school supplies, property taxes, car repairs. I sipped slowly, letting him squirm in the silence. He pressed on. We were hoping you could spot us a bit, just short-term, to tide us over. I looked at him over my mug's rim. His eyes flicked toward the hallway, checking for Emily. How much is a bit? He gave a weak chuckle. Maybe $2,000? 3 tops. I set the mug down carefully. I thought the refinance was supposed to fix all that. His jaw tightened for a split second. It fell through. Some glitch. Banks reviewing it. I nodded like I was mulling it over. And this is for what, exactly? He fumbled. Just bills, house stuff. I gave him a warm grandmotherly smile. You'll be getting something in the mail soon. His eyebrows shot up. Yeah. My smile didn't waver, unreadable. Just house stuff. I stood, carried my mug to the sink, and left him standing there. That night, in the quiet of my room, I uploaded the photos to my secure drive. I attached them to an email from my lawyer and the mortgage auditor, typing subject, lavish spending amid delinquency evidence attached. Before sending, I reread my closing line. They dressed up the house for a holiday while I prepared for a foreclosure. I clicked send. The next morning, Emily was at the mailbox in her slippers, flipping through letters with a bored expression. I watched from my upstairs window as her hand stopped on a thick cream envelope. Her head tilted, puzzled. She glanced back at the house, moving slower now, like she sensed the holiday decor was the only thing keeping the facade intact. I smiled. Oh, you'll be getting something in the mail. The same hands that handed me a paper plate now shook at an envelope. The envelope wasn't flashy. No bold stamps, no glaring warnings. It was a plain cream-colored envelope, unassuming like a quiet sky before a storm breaks. Ryan grabbed the morning mail from the porch and almost overlooked it, wedged between a home decor magazine and a pizza flyer. He frowned, turned it over, and froze. The logo in the corner hit him like a jab to the chest. Pinnacle Home Loans. His gut twisted. Barefoot on the chilly doorstep, he ripped it open, the cold tiles unnoticed under his feet. The opening line wasn't a hello. This letter is formal notice of foreclosure proceedings due to ongoing delinquency and an active fraud investigation tied to the property listed below. Ryan read it once, then twice, then a third time, his hands starting to tremble. From the kitchen, Emily's voice chirped. Did the fall decor catalog show up? Ryan didn't respond. Emily appeared in the doorway, coffee mug in hand, her brow creasing as she caught his expression. What's wrong? Without a word, he passed her the letter. She scanned it in silence, her throat tightening. By the time she reached the signature at the bottom, her face had hardened into that sharp, familiar scowl I knew too well. No way, she hissed. This has to be a mix-up. Ryan raked a hand through his hair, already dialing the bank. I sat at the breakfast nook, sipping my chamomile tea, calmly flipping to the next page of my newspaper. Emily's voice sharpened as the call connected. Hi, yes, we got a foreclosure notice. What? No, nobody told us proceedings had started. We were told it was still under review. She stopped, her face paling. I glanced up, locking eyes with her. What do you mean she transferred her equity? Emily snapped into the phone. Hold on, what do you mean she doesn't have to tell us? This is our house. I took another slow sip of tea. Ryan yanked the phone from her, trying to regain control. There's been a mistake. My mom, Margaret Thompson, lives here. We look after her. Whatever the voice on the other end said, it wasn't what he wanted to hear. I stood, folding my newspaper with care. If it helps, I said, my voice soft but cutting. I warned you this was coming. Emily's mouth opened, then shut. She started. I didn't wait for her to finish. I turned and climbed the stairs, one deliberate step at a time, no fuss, no tears. In my room, I moved with purpose, knowing exactly what to pack. My soft wool scarf, the vintage watch my dad gave me, the binder with my trust papers, my passport, the pale blue cashmere sweater still wrapped in tissue from a Christmas 3 years back, the one Emily had accidentally regifted. Each item went into a single suitcase. I zipped it slowly, methodically, as shouts of disbelief erupted downstairs. How long? Ryan yelled. How long has she been setting this up? I don't know. Emily shot back. She's old, she's quiet. We weren't supposed to notice. They'd mistaken my silence for defeat. I opened my closet and reached behind a row of forgotten jackets for a small wooden jewelry box. Inside were my mom's pearl pin, 3 unsent letters, and a worn brass key, etched with the number 208. I slipped it into my pocket. Downstairs, the doorbell chimed. Emily's voice cut off mid-sentence. Ryan stepped back like the sound had stung him. Through the etched glass door, I saw the outline of a man in a suit, holding a black briefcase, his stance all business. He didn't ring again. I glided past Emily and Ryan at the foot of the stairs, barely grazing their space. My lawyer handed me the envelope with a slight nod. "Miss Thompson," he said. "As requested. Official foreclosure papers, delivery confirmed." I took it calmly. "Thank you. Perfect timing." I turned and placed the envelope in Ryan's hands. "The same hands that gave me a paper plate," I said quietly, "are shaking now." Emily tried to speak, but her voice failed. I walked past them, suitcase in tow. My lawyer delivered the official foreclosure notice. The pot roast was steaming. The silence was icy. I wasn't just foreclosing. I was reclaiming the whole property under an ownership clause. The pot roast sat untouched at the table's center, its savory steam fading like a dying whisper. I sat at the far end, composed, my fork and knife perfectly aligned, though I hadn't touched my plate. The dining room, once alive with laughter and clinking glasses, felt cavernous. Every sound, Ryan's awkward cough, Emily's 10 sips of water, rang too loud, too sharp. The silence wasn't hollow. It was heavy with anticipation. I set my napkin down. "Before this food gets cold, we need to talk." Emily blinked, startled. "Margaret, can't we just—" "No," I said, my tone gentle but unyielding. "You've had your chance." I slid a thick legal folder across the table. It landed in front of Ryan with a quiet thud, but its weight shook the room. Inside were copies of every paper they thought I'd lost, every signature they never expected me to save. Ryan opened it, his fingers unsteady, his eyes darting across the pages, first fast, then frantic. "What is this?" I poured myself a glass of water. "The agreement you both signed when I gave you the $70,000, the original equity clause, and this," I tapped a highlighted section, "is what you clearly never bothered to read." Emily leaned in, squinting. "What clause?" I gave a faint smile. "The neglect-triggered reversion clause. My lawyer added it when you promised me lifetime care. It says if I face financial abuse, neglect, or emotional harm in the home I helped buy, I can reclaim my share, or full ownership depending on the extent." Emily let out a brittle laugh. "You're joking. That's actually binding." A voice cut in from the hallway. My lawyer, Daniel, stepped into view, briefcase in hand, the same man who delivered the foreclosure notice days ago. "The clause has been reviewed and upheld," he said. "Based on the recordings, financial records, and witness statements, we're not pursuing a partial claim. We're enforcing a full asset recovery." Ryan shot to his feet, his face flushed. "You can't just take our house." Daniel opened his briefcase, pulled out another envelope, and set it on the table with calm precision. "You already lost it," I said softly. "With every lie. Every lie they told, every forged paper, every time they locked me out, they handed me the house." Emily clutched the envelope and tore it open, her face going pale. 30 days, she whispered, her voice cracking. "You're kicking us out?" Ryan looked ready to smash something. "We'll fight this," he growled. "We'll sue. This is our home." I rose slowly, my movements steady, deliberate. "No, Ryan," I said. "It was ours once. Then it was yours. Then it became your stage. Now it's mine again, not for spite, but because I refuse to be erased." Emily's lip curled. "You think this makes you some kind of saint?" I held her gaze, unflinching. "I don't care about being a saint. I'm just a woman who finally grabbed the pen and stopped letting others write my story." Outside, a moving van rolled up, my belongings heading to the house across the street. Tidy boxes, quiet dignity in motion. I stepped toward the doorway, my flat soft on the hardwood, then paused to glance back at the dining room. The pot roast still steamed on its platter, but no one had an appetite anymore. "You should eat," I said. "You'll need the energy. The clock's ticking." I left them in a silence so thick it drowned out their voices. Emily received a 30-day eviction notice. The birthday banner was gone, and so was the furniture. The hollow quiet was the first thing Emily noticed when she stepped back inside. No hum from the fridge, no faint groan of the vintage dining chairs, no soft cushion of area rugs. The living room echoed with the eerie stillness of absence. It took her a second to process, then it hit like a punch. The furniture was gone. The sectional sofa. The heavy maple dining table. The armchairs with my initials still stitched into the cushion linings. Even the oval mirror by the entry, The one I'd hung myself 13 years ago was gone, leaving a faint dusty outline on the wall. Emily stumbled into the dining room and gasped. The table was completely missing. All that remained was a subtle mark on the floor, a ghost of where meals and memories once lived. The gourd centerpiece sat abandoned on the hardwood. Across the street, I stood on the porch of my new home, clipboard in hand, overseeing the movers with calm authority. My skirt was neatly pressed, my blouse fresh, my hair pulled back in a simple bun. No smile, just focus. Every item that was mine was reclaimed with precise receipts, legal documents, and perfect timing. "Hey!" Emily yelled, charging outside, her bathrobe flapping. "You stole our furniture." I turned, my face unreadable. "No, I took my furniture. Everything I paid for is legally tied to my trust. Feel free to contest it if you want to tangle with the paperwork." Ryan appeared behind her, panting and flushed, clearly just catching on. "Margaret, come on, this is petty." I raised an eyebrow. "Want to talk about petty? Or should we discuss forged signatures and bolted doors?" A few neighbors had wandered out, watching the drama unfold with quiet interest. One couple murmured behind their hedge. Another snapped a quick photo. I met their gazes, gave a polite nod, and turned back to the movers. "Mind the chandelier," I said softly. "It's genuine crystal, the real deal." Ryan's jaw tightened. Emily spun to storm back inside, but stopped when a voice called from the sidewalk. "Mail for 208. It was Mrs. Larson, the retired librarian from 2 houses down, holding a stack of letters. "This one got mixed up with ours." Emily grabbed the bundle. "Thanks," she muttered. Mrs. Larson paused. "Big changes, huh?" she said, glancing at me across the street. Emily didn't reply, already rifling through the stack. One envelope stood out. Cream. Elegant, no return address, just her name in bold, careful cursive. She ripped it open on the porch, Ryan hovering behind her. Inside was a single page. Margaret Thompson, last will and testament, copy for Emily Carter's records, witnessed and legally binding. Emily skimmed the page, her hands gripping tighter as she read. I'd rewritten everything. My estate, my remaining savings, my new house, even my legal stake in the rental property nearby. All of it left to a foundation. Not family, not Ryan, not Emily. The foundation was set up to help women over 65 facing financial exploitation and housing instability. Emily let out a sharp, bitter laugh that turned into a choke. She's giving it all away, just to screw us over. Across the street, I set up a small folding table on my new porch. On it, a few simple plates, a pitcher of iced tea, and sandwiches wrapped in wax paper. A different kind of birthday spread. A neighbor sat down with me, then another. I lifted my glass, not to spite or victory, but to something tougher, starting over. Emily crumpled the letter in her fist, but her hands shook too much to rip it apart. Emily opened it to find a copy of my new will. They thought they'd run the party. I changed the location and the guest list. The aroma of shortbread cookies and grilled zucchini floated down the street, drawing neighbors like moths to a porch light. Subtle, pale blue balloons swayed gently on my freshly painted front gate, where a chalkboard sign read, "Margaret's true birthday. Come as you are." The chairs were a mix of styles. The drinks cold but unfussy, the tablecloths cotton, not silk. Yet the whole scene glowed with a warmth my old house, now an empty husk across the street, never had. I sat under a cream canopy on my front lawn, sunlight glinting off the simple pendant around my neck. My smile wasn't forced, it was hard won. My guests weren't here to network or impress. They were people who knew me before the loan, before the betrayal, before I became a shadow in my own home. Mrs. Larson brought her signature coleslaw. Sam from the hardware store strummed an acoustic guitar on the porch. A young woman I'd mentored in algebra years ago dropped by with a bouquet of daisies. There were no paper plates this time. And me. I wasn't stuck in the folding chair. I sat at the head of the table in a plush, high-backed chair, custom-made for me. The one Emily always claimed at every family gathering. That seat's not hers anymore. A voice muttered near the driveway, low and bitter. She's really throwing herself a party? It was Emily, standing just beyond my lawn's edge, sunglasses on, arms folded like a shield, dressed in all black as if mourning something. Her loss or mine, nobody could say. Ryan lagged behind her, less furious than humiliated, his eyes dodging everyone's gaze, already crumbling under the weight of their downfall. One of my guests, Clara, the retired schoolteacher with keen eyes and keener instincts, spotted them first. She marched over without a pause. "This is a private gathering," she said, her small frame blocking their path. "Invitation only." Emily scoffed. "You've got to be kidding. This is my mother-in-law's house." Clara didn't flinch. "Not anymore. It's Margaret's now. And we don't welcome folks who whisper dementia behind her back." Ryan tried to step in. "Margaret, maybe we could just..." I stood slowly, not with anger, but with the steady confidence of someone who'd earned her place. "Emily." "Ryan." My voice was calm, not harsh. "You're not welcome here today." Emily's smile twisted with venom. "We took care of you for years, Margaret." I met her stare head-on. "You took care of yourselves with my money, my name, and my patience." The words hung thick in the warm July air. Ryan opened his mouth but closed it, thinking better of it. They turned and slunk back to the house across the street, where cardboard boxes cluttered the windows like scars. Under my canopy, I raised my glass. "I spent years just grateful to be let in," I said, my voice clear yet gentle. "Thankful to be tolerated. But today, I'm toasting what I've earned. Not what I was given, not what I borrowed, not what was twisted. Earned." A soft wave of claps followed. Glasses chimed. I raised my glass, my voice steady but electric. "One more thing," I said, pausing as the crowd hushed. "I bought the lot next door, the one right beside their house." Gasps turned to cheers. "It'll be a rental for women escaping toxic families." My eyes gleamed, not with anger, but with freedom. Gasps mixed with laughter. Someone called out, "The one right beside them?" My eyes sparkled. "That's the one. I'm turning it into a short-term rental for women escaping messy family dynamics." Sam struck a triumphant chord on his guitar. Mrs. Larson lifted her cup like it was a trophy. I settled back into my chair and picked up a slice of birthday cake. Dark chocolate, decadent real. The kind nobody had bothered to serve me in ages. This time, I didn't have to share it with people whose smiles faded when I turned away. I announced I'd bought the property next to theirs as a rental. You can't buy back respect or a reputation once it's gone. I donated part of the recovered equity to a women's legal fund for victims of elder financial abuse. The quiet at 208 Maple Lane wasn't calm anymore. It was sharp, accusing. Emily sat at the kitchen counter, surrounded by unopened bills, her laptop flashing a login error for the third time. The bank had locked her out again. An overdraft alert in her inbox stung like a final slap. Across the street, wind chimes on my porch tinkled softly in the breeze. "Want the good news or the bad?" Ryan asked, leaning stiffly in the doorway, a manila envelope in his grip. Emily didn't look up. "Neither." He tossed the envelope onto the counter. "Too bad. It's from Pinnacle Home Loans. They wrapped up the investigation. They're pinning fraud on you." Emily's back straightened. "What? You used Margaret's income, her assets, her signature on a loan application without telling her," he said, running a hand through his hair. "They're reporting it to the credit agencies and the district attorney's office." Emily's fingers shook as she opened the envelope. There it was in stark black ink, legal terms cold and final. "They're going to tank my credit," she whispered. Ryan sank into a chair, deflated. "Mine's already shot. They pulled my job offer this morning. Said my credit's a mess and there's ethical concerns." "I was this close, Emily." His voice broke. She didn't say sorry. She just stared at the letter, as if glaring would rewrite it. Meanwhile, at 210 Maple Lane, I sat in my airy sunroom with my lawyer, a pot of lavender tea steaming between us. On the table was a folder with a gold embossed seal. Women's Justice and Advocacy Fund. "You're certain?" my lawyer asked. I nodded firmly. A third of what I reclaimed from the house, plus the trust's equity. I want it designated for women like me, women who gave, trusted, and paid the price. He gave a warm smile. "That'll make a real difference for a lot of people." I gazed out the window, my fingers resting lightly on my teacup. "That's the plan." Outside, Mrs. Larson was tending her roses. A young volunteer from the community center waved as she passed by. The world kept turning, but those clinging to deception were slipping under. My lawyer slid another document across the table. "And this?" he asked. "The property transfer?" I let out a slow breath. It was my final play, the one I'd held close. I picked up the pen, feeling its weight, lighter than it should have been for what it meant. "Yes," I said. "Transfer the rental next door to the fund." His eyebrows lifted. "You're giving it up?" "I'm investing in freedom, mine and theirs," I said, signing the paper. From the upstairs window of 208, Emily watched my lawyer and me shake hands, saw the folder tucked into his briefcase, caught my smile, not cruel but serene. "Why does she keep winning?" Emily spat. Ryan didn't answer. He knew the truth. I hadn't won everything. I just stopped letting myself lose. That evening I stepped into my garden, kneeling beside the peonies, planting new roots in soil I owned outright. The sun sank low, bathing the street in a golden haze. At my feet, a small garden sign read, "Sown once, grown stronger." I smiled. I signed the final transfer for the rental next door.
No folding chair. No plastic plats.
Just peace. Morning light streamed through sheer curtains, casting warm golden stripes across my breakfast table. No wobbly folding chairs, no flimsy paper plates. Just sturdy ceramic dishes, real silverware, and the gentle clink of a spoon against a porcelain teacup. I stirred my tea slowly, savoring the quiet. Not the kind forced on me by exclusion, but the kind I'd chosen for myself. Across the table there was no one, and for the first time in years, the emptiness didn't hurt, it comforted. After breakfast, I strolled 2 blocks to the community center, gripping a canvas tote stuffed with brochures and resource guides. The glass doors parted with a gentle hum, ushering in the faint aroma of citrus cleaner and fresh coffee. The activity room hummed with soft energy, chuckles, the glide of walkers on shiny floors, papers shuffling, and snippets of chatter. I set my tote by the whiteboard and smiled at the women who'd gathered. Some steadied themselves with canes. One relied on an oxygen tank. Every one of them leaned forward when I started speaking. "Today," I said, scrawling neatly across the board, "we're talking about owning your value, protecting your estate, and spotting financial warning signs." I had a voice now, not just for me, but for others who still thought staying quiet kept the harmony. By lunchtime, I'd counseled 4 widows, 3 divorcees, and a woman who confided in a hushed tone that her daughter was helping manage her savings. I handed her a card. "No choices without documents," I said gently, "and no signing anything without a good night's sleep." Her eyes welled up as she nodded. That afternoon back home, I noticed a blinking light on my landline voicemail. Wiping garden dirt from my gloves, I hit play. It was Emily, her voice shaky, hesitant. "Margaret? I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from. Ryan's gone. Took a job in Colorado. I'm alone here. I miss the holidays, the family stuff. I know I don't deserve it, but can we meet? Just talk." A long pause, then a click. I didn't waver. At my desk, I pulled out a note card and wrote in my tidy cursive, "Emily, thank you for reaching out. I wish you peace and growth. Margaret." No blame, no opening, just a polite final note. I slipped it into the mailbox the next morning. A few days later, while trimming rosemary in my front yard, a young man approached my gate. Clean-cut, with a press badge pinned to his shirt. "Miss Thompson?" he asked, polite but practiced. "I'm Lucas Rivera with True Stories Media. We're working on a documentary about elder rights and financial exploitation. Your name's come up a lot." I set down my clippers. A breeze carried the sharp scent of fresh herbs and damp earth. "We've reviewed court records, seen the local news, and caught your financial workshops trending on Instagram," he said with a grin. "Folks are calling you the Silent Thunder. We'd be honored to share your story. It could reach thousands." I didn't reply right away. Instead, I swung open the gate, gestured to the patio bench, and poured him a glass of water from the pitcher on my porch. "I'll need to mull it over," I said, sitting across from him. "I'm not here for vengeance stories." "Neither are we," he said quickly. "We want to highlight women who rewrite their own endings." I glanced at the house across the street, once my prison, now someone else's hollow shell. I turned back to him, steady and thoughtful. "I'll consider it, but only if I pick the table I speak from." He grinned. "Deal." I sipped my water, reflective. For the first time in forever, my story wasn't being stolen. It was being invited. A documentary filmmaker asked for my story. They fed me shame. I served them justice. The screen faded in from black, showing my hands, worn but sure, cutting into a key lime pie with steady precision. The documentary began not with pain but with a question. What does it feel like to be erased in your own home? My voice answered, clear and measured over the footage. You start by shrinking your needs, then your thoughts, until one day someone hands you a plastic cup at your own birthday, and you realize the table was never yours to begin with. The final cut of Silent Thunder. The Margaret Thompson story ran just over 45 minutes. Meant for a small audience on a justice-focused streaming platform, it blew up within days. Clips went viral on Instagram. A 90-second segment of me saying, "I didn't want revenge, I wanted my name back," racked up 5.2 million views in a week. Hashtags surged. Hashtag Margaret Justice. Hashtag No More Plastic Plates. Hashtag Take Back Your Table. Inboxes overflowed. The Women's Legal Fund I'd supported tripled its donations by month's end. Local news picked up the story, then national outlets followed. But I kept my days simple. My garden still needed tending. The community center still needed volunteers. My dining table still held 4 chairs. No more, no less. Cross town, things were different. Emily twisted the knob on the rickety stove in her studio apartment, the gas flame sputtering unevenly. The space was tight, with thin walls and a view of a concrete lot. The TV flickered in the corner, Silent Thunder playing again. She muted it before my voice could fill the room. Ryan came home from a shift at a warehouse, his 5th job in 4 months. He dropped his ID badge on the counter and stared at the silent screen. "She's a star now," he mumbled. Emily didn't answer. She couldn't. The shame had hardened into silence. The court hadn't pursued fraud charges. I'd chosen not to press, but the fallout was permanent. Their credit was ruined. Their reputations were ashes. Neighbors stopped nodding hello. Back at 210 Maple Lane, I polished my grandmother's silverware. Each spoon gleamed like a quiet blade. My dining table, crafted from salvaged oak, was sanded, stained, and paid for with my own funds. No debts, no signatures. I lit 2 slender candles, poured a glass of Merlot, and sat down to the meal I'd cooked. The roasted chicken was fragrant, warm, perfectly spiced. No one cut me off. No one spoke over me. I savored every bite, slow and deliberate. Then a soft knock at the door. I paused, wiped my hands, and walked to answer it. A teenage girl stood outside, nervous, clutching a notebook. "Miss Thompson," she asked. "I'm from Crestwood High. We're doing a project on local changemakers. My teacher said you're the one to talk to." I smiled. "Tell your teacher I'm flattered." She blinked. "So is that a yes?" "It's a maybe," I said warmly. "Come back next week. I'll have brownies ready either way." As she walked away, I glanced back at my table. Crystal sparkling, plates neatly set, everything exactly as I wanted it. Outside, the breeze stirred the wind chimes. Inside, nothing moved unless I said so. I returned to my seat, raised my glass, took another bite, and smiled. This year, I'm celebrating with silverware and serenity. If you like this story, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Write in the comments whether Margaret did the right thing. Also, we recommend you to listen to the story about how a woman came to her ex-husband's funeral and everyone was laughing at her and whispering, but when the lawyer read the will, everyone became quiet. To listen to this story, just click on the box on the left of the screen. Thank you for watching.